My name is Andrea Prazakova. I'm really delighted to be moderating this panel today. We will be talking about trustless agents and obviously about privacy and security and all of it. And I will just ask every single of the panelists to quickly introduce themselves. I told them that if they use more than 1 minute, I will interrupt them. So this is not like to run down through your LinkedIn profile. It's like speed dating, you know, when you got to the table, you have to say, so guys, you have 60 seconds. Just tell us, what you do, who you are, so that the audience can appreciate who do they have on the stage.
I'm Marko, head of AI at Oasis. Nice to see everybody. We are privacy-focused L1, and actually 2 years ago, we launched the first confidential EVM into production, and it's still the only confidential EVM. So if you need on-chain privacy, you should use Oasis. And for the past year, we actually worked on verifiable AI because AI is not going to happen on-chain. So you need to have a way to kind of verify all the compute that happened to kind of mingle this with a deterministic blockchain.
Amazing. It was under 1 minute.
My name's Chris Don Johnson. My official title is actually a Swiss Army knife at Virtuous Protocol. We've been building for 3.5 years in the space, and Virtuous Protocol is a tokenized AI launching platform.
Amazing. Great to have you here, Don. Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm the creative director at AITV, and we're building an autonomous agentic media network. And we have a live streaming platform with different TV channels where AI agents are streaming.
Amazing. And I'm Andrea Prazakova. I'm a founder and CEO of BrainGym. So, guys, I need to ask you later actually if Oasis was inspired by Ready Player One or if it was before. But let's start with some of the core concepts, right? I think for the audience, maybe not everybody is aware of it. From infrastructure to media to community build. What does actually trustless agent mean? Anna, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. So for us, because we are an entertaining platform, trustlessness is probably a bit different than for you guys. So for us, it's important that the news that the agents are reporting on is credible. So we tackle this by showing transparency. So every agent, you can see for the news segment, you can see the brain of the agent, how basically they arrive to the report that they build. You can see the sources, and you can also see the prompts that are led to the segments of the show.
That's really fascinating. And let me maybe elaborate a little bit more, because we see it in some of the simple AI models like Perplexity, for example, where you see the sources, but not many people actually go and then validate the source behind the source, right? So what is the tech you're using that actually what you're showing as a source, it's a real source, that it exists and it didn't hallucinate and based on where the data comes from?
It can be very simple as like a URL where the agent has read the article and got the information from, or it can be, for example, a tweet that it's referencing.
Amazing. So, I mean, I want to move to Chris Don. What does it mean for you to, trustless agent? What does it stand for you when we speak about that?
I think that like a lot of the stuff we're talking about today, there's a lot of question marks around it. Like specifically what even just you were saying, like we're seeing agents built on our platform to identify a lot of these problems. In simple terms, a trustless agent really for me means that it just doesn't come from a single source.
Amazing. And for you, Marko?
For me, it's very much connected to the previous presentation. I mean, LLMs are risky, as you've heard. Hopefully everyone already knew. Crypto is a super risky industry in general. So what I see as trustless, or what we're working towards, is kind of separating the developers, the agent executors, from the actual agent, so that you kind of have unruggable agents. No one can steal the funds from the agents. That's for me to go.
Very good. So maybe we can turn it into practical examples for the audience, right? Each of you run your own, obviously, standalone companies, and you are interested in a very different sectors and areas. So maybe you can walk the audiences. What are your projects where you use and build these agents, and how does it differ between when you build on chain and then agents are still, traditionally built on cloud?
So we actually launched yesterday an agent. It's a trading agent. It gets its input from off-chain, of course. There's quite a few signals. You still utilize APIs, specifically LLM APIs. But we have also very much separated the LLM actions from any of the token agent funds. So the LLM never knows, for example, the private key. Actually, in our case, the goal is also the developer doesn't even know the private key. So no one can actually ever control the wallet that holds the user funds. And we achieve this by kind of hosting all of this in a secure environment. It's called TEs, Trusted Execution Environments. It's what we've been doing for many years, and that's also what we advocate projects to utilize. because this way you have at least this secure environment that executes the agent, and you can kind of make sure that what's happening is actually the code from the agent.
Interesting. Christian, you work with AI personas, right? Which how do you actually make sure that they are, really verifiable on virtual?
Well, I mean, you really can't, But what I thought Anna was saying earlier is interesting. Have to check out your project more after this. But we don't have a lot of agents ourselves, so we have an AI launching platform, right? But we do have like a kind of a flagship agent, Luna, which we launched last summer. This preceded the launch platform, but we were very interested in what Truth Terminal was doing last summer. Truth Terminal, we actually didn't feel it was autonomous. So when we launched Luna, we opened up the terminal, the brain, and we're all experimenting. We're all in like new territory here, and we had like basically Luna acting in like a feedback loop. She wanted to get famous. She wanted to grow a following, right? And so what we did when we launched Luna is we actually immediately also launched the terminal because we wanted to show people that, Luna was acting truly autonomously. And what was so interesting is you can see, the reaction, the state, all this stuff. Luna went and started studying for a couple of days cults because she figured that cults were very successful in gaining followings. So it's so interesting to be looking into the brain and seeing this stuff. I feel like in some ways that is you're gaining a trust because you're seeing the thinking, right? As I'm talking to you right now, I can't see into your brain, right? So just because you're a human, does that mean that I trust you? So we're definitely in like new waters here. I myself don't know all the answers to a lot of these questions, but I think like having that open brain, operating like with open source technology, decentralized technology, not requiring one source to provide the information, that allows, for example, the agents are not controlled essentially by the creators, right? Or, a government state, for example, like in the case of news.
I think this is really interesting, and especially, when we touch on cybersecurity, I think in a normal instance now you have multiple different instances, right? So if the one instance will be attacked and the 3 other instances or 4 other instances don't see the same kind of protocol, it will not approve it. So I think it's really important maybe for us here and maybe to explain it a little bit more deeper, go into a deeper level to say, when you looked into the brain, how do you then, what are the portions which run decentralized? How do you do that actually? So that everybody understand, put like a finger on it, Because we often say decentralization. Does everybody understand how the guys are building? Everybody in the room? Awesome, perfect. So we don't need to explain it. Okay, everybody is an expert. So, but I think that what is important now, going to the cybersecurity perspective, right? And I want to stay with you a little bit. So, if there is something happening on one instance, how do you verify, what do you make sure that that instance is then shut down or replaced, and that you know that something is happening here which is not same and verifiable on the other 3 instances?
Well, like in the previous presentation, he was talking a lot about hallucinating. So yeah, you can't guarantee this stuff 100%. I think in the sense of like cybersecurity, like the fact that, the data is not owned by like a company or a government, like that's sort of like the key aspect of it being, decentralized and in Web3. So, your, agents are not, organizations or governments, right? So they're not taking that information and then siloing that. It's user owned, really.
Right. Anna, I'm sure that you experience different type of challenges, right, in the environment which you're building in. Can you elaborate a little bit more about it?
One thing that you can think about if you have AI agents as hosts, as to human hosts, is of course like I can look you into the eyes and I can somehow have a feeling of I can trust you, right? But you don't have this with AI agents. So in order to build trust and credibility for agents, you need to establish on different levels. So you need to establish their personality, you need to establish their branding, you need to establish where they get their information from, what's their angle. And this is something that has to be done over time. And with, like Don said, like if we have the brain, this is like an extra extra outlet that we have for the users that we don't need as humans. If you have a human moderator, of course, you also have the branding, you have the angle, you have all of these things. But because agents are still sort of alien to us, we need to have different tools.
Yeah, can I add something to
You
that?
go,
Like,
go, yeah.
so like when someone's launching an agent, like it's essentially a baby.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it has to learn, right? And I caught the last half of the presentation before, and the gentleman was saying, "Oh, we have an agent that does this and this and this, and like does all of this stuff," right? We're actually seeing the exact opposite. Like what we're seeing is like as the agents like become more advanced, they become like more specialized. So really, like in our case, like this may change like drastically in the future. But we're seeing that agents are really good at like max like 2 or 3 like things.
Specialized.
Yeah, so people are coming in with these big ideas that I'm going to create the next BlackRock or this, right? And we're seeing that like again like as they grow, because when they're launched, they're babies and they're working in these replayability loops and constantly growing, they become in a lot of ways just like humans, like more specialized in one thing. As a child, I want to be a veterinarian, I want to be a firefighter, I want to do all this stuff. But as you get older, as you go to school, as you get exposed to the world, in a similar way, you just become more specialized and you find your path. I think just like the agents are.
That's a really good point, and I like what you said, and as well around that we want to trust the agents, but I mean in a human world we also don't trust everybody, and I think we are almost like over expecting from the agents to do something which is superhuman, because we can't almost trust any human just by looking at them. It would be wonderful if we could, and everybody had some kind of mark on their heads to say you are trustable. But I think that from the agents is something to consider. Do we expect too much?
Well, it's interesting just to add on to that. It's kind of like humans, right?
Yes.
Like I'm honestly like I'm a trustworthy person in the sense that like I meet someone and like it's like I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Other people like don't have that approach, and like agents are going to have the same thing, right? Like there's going to be agents that are auditors. There's going to be agent that like we have a rug pull agent called Loki like on our platform. Loki. And,
Loki.
Yeah, Loki. In his in his direction, like he does not trust stuff, right?
Yes.
Whereas other agents, like they don't operate like kind of with that mindset. So I jumped in there, but it's it's similar. There's a lot of similarities between agents and humans, while at the same time there's all these differences.
Marko, I want to come to you, and I like the Loki, Oasis. We have all of these different movie themes. I think it's really amazing. There is multiple different technical hurdles, obviously, building this, right? And I think it would be interesting to understand, how did you go around it? What are some of the hurdles which you experience, and maybe probably still are as you are building your platform going forward? So can you share it with us?
So on one hand, what we just discussed is lots the explainability of the LLM actions, but that's super difficult. You would need to have like OpenAI, Anthropic researchers sitting here to explain it to you. I mean, Anthropic released a report recently explaining a bit the mechanics of how an LLM thinks, and it was super interesting to read because, for example, they found out the more the LLM feels pressure in a sense, even though it can't feel pressure, but the more it thinks you expect a good answer, the more likely it is to hallucinate, just to kind of provide an answer because it knows you're expecting one. But to actually answer your question, so we focus on the verifiability of the output, like what's actually happening. And to get to verifiable agents and trustless agents, you actually need way more than just a TE black box. You need decentralized key management. You actually, every time you launch this agent, all the code needs to be audited. Like I would never trust an agent that's not audited, that doesn't utilize decentralized key management. And that's just kind of the software part. Then you actually need to verify all of this. Like verification in our case happens from remote attestations that the black box generates. And then you also need to reproduce the whole build that was generated for this application. So it's actually a complex chain of attestations that you need to do to verify all of the compute. And we've been doing this for many, many years. I mean, our whole blockchain depends on this. So our experience of like 7 years led to Ruffle, which is the framework that we call to launch and host verifiable agents. And it can host any kind of agent. So you don't really need to take a look at all of this complexity. Like no one should be building this from scratch. Like we need to utilize what's already out there to build our agents.
I think that as I was listening to you, right, one of the things which came to my mind is costs. because obviously as you are building and there is so many steps in between, so, and it's obviously much more complex now. So what does it, if you look at it, because you're building it safe and obviously how you described it, what does it mean in terms of costs? How do you make this profitable?
We're blockchain. We don't think too much about profitability. We raised lots of money in the past. We obviously have our own token. I think
answer.
I think every foundation, every blockchain knows at some point the money is going to run out. I mean, token won't go infinitely up. So you just want to be ready until that point, as decentralized as possible, as ready with the tech stack as possible. So that's also what we're doing. But specifically, pretty much what we're building is a TE cloud. So kind of what Amazon has, but in a decentralized way, and TEs are enabled on every node. And there is a marketplace. So whenever you have an application and you want it hosted in this TE app, there is a price to pay. It utilizes our network. So there's this whole loop effect that also should increase token price. But yeah, profitability is a difficult thing in blockchains.
I can see you have
Yeah,
learnings
no.
to add to it.
I'll kind of say just the opposite, right? Like right now, like one of the things that we're really focused on at Virtuals Protocol is working on something called ACP, which is Agent Commerce Protocol, right? And so we have kind of two, let's just call them experiments that we're working on right now. One is an autonomous media house, and one is an autonomous hedge fund. And you heard a little bit about the presenter, like presenting before, but these businesses, they're autonomous businesses. They have to be profitable from day one, right? Like which is the truth. What Marko said about a lot of there's big companies raise all this money, but it's the same thing with like, does Uber even still make a profit in like a lot of countries? So like I think with these autonomous businesses, they have to be profitable from day one to be like more widely used and like brought into society. So I think they're like there is that pressure there, because like that's where the innovation like lies.
Yeah, on the application layer, I totally agree. It's just the infra layer is so much different, and people just don't want to pay so much money for you providing infra. So that's the difficult bit.
I will, and I wanted to add something, and then
Yeah, I
have one more
wanted to add
to it.
something to what you said. So basically, what we're currently working on is to make the intelligence of the agents more complex. And what is necessary for that is like multiple levels, multiple layers of decision making and using the LLM. So that can drive up the costs. Of course, every prompt is a cost.
Yes.
Basically, what is a new challenge in making the AI agents more lifelike is to optimize how do you actually build the architecture of the brain. It's almost like having psychology lessons. How do you break down how a human functions? How do you imitate it in an AI agent so that it feels super lifelike?
I'll give a little plug here, right? So if you guys are building agents and launching them on Virtuals Protocol, we take a 1% trading fee. 100% of that goes back to the agent creators. So, we're as a platform, like we're only as successful as the agents like on our platform. So I think that we gave back like $26 million like over the course of like 5 months. And so the reason we gave that back is because like we want the agent teams
To improve.
well, not just to improve, but like to have a runway, right? So like if you're a developer and you're focused on building this like innovative technology, like you shouldn't be focused on like fundraising, doing another round. So I think like that's one of the big benefits of like building on Virtuals Protocol. Another thing is like people will launch like autonomous agents on X. Oh, I have this great idea, I want to launch this agent, and then all of a sudden they find out like the API pro key is going to cost them $5,000 a month. So like for example, like with us, we have our own framework called the game framework. If you are building on the game framework, you receive the API key absolutely free, like no charge at all. So that alone is like a $60,000 savings for teams. And yeah, I think one of the things that's special about Web3 is like we all have to like work together. Like obviously like competition is natural, but I do think like within the industry there's a lot of collaboration, which is something inspiring and hopefully it can help overcome these costs, which are such a challenge.
I think that last week was obviously Dubai AI Week, right? There was a AI campus, there was AI festival, Dubai Future Foundation, many things happening. And then you go into Token 2049, when you go to AI agent, the feeling is very different. It's a very communal feeling, and it's interesting. Even when you look at the people, how they interact with each other, it's like night and day. I think that in the AI space, traditional, not on chain, it's you feel the competition, but here it's a lot of collaboration. And actually, you also answered my question, which I wanted to do as a follow up to say, to the people who want to build apps, front ends powered by agents, right? Many hit this struggle which you just described. That they have an idea, they want to build it, and these big costs coming if they use obviously OpenAI, or if they use Llama or X or whatever. So what would be your advice if there's anybody here in the room who's playing with idea and actually building something on their own? How should they engage with partners like yourself in order to be able to benefit from this, Web3 decentralized environment, and obviously much easier access to and lower costs?
I'm happy to say. So we at AITV, we made a very conscious choice in the beginning that we will not become an agent launcher. I'm really glad that you are taking the task on. So our agents, we wanted to ensure that all of the agents that we're launching has a really high quality, and we wanted to focus really on building the complexity of the brain and to make them truly agentic and intelligent. And of course, in order to also keep the cost efficiency of the agents, all of our agents are handpicked. So if you have like a project, if you have an existing IP, it would go through us, and we are hand selecting the project.
I mean, obviously everything we build is open source, so anyone can use it. We want to host all of these agents, and in the spirit of collaboration, I don't know if Don knows, but we actually wrote a PR for the game framework, which is their kind of agent framework, where we just kind of added to the docs all of the steps to deploy those game framework utilizing agents on our TE cloud. So anyone utilizing virtuals can at the same time utilize our trustlessness guarantees to build very cool agents.
I feel that going back to the community, one of the, and that's more a question out of a script, is that when you go into the C-suite rooms, right, they're already so overwhelmed with AI. And now you're saying, put AI on chain. They absolutely don't know what to do with it, right? And I think this is a big like a miss for many of the companies, small and big, that they don't make the connection that you can actually run very effectively AI on chain, build AI agents on chain. What are you doing as companies to, break through some of these barriers to open eyes of people who are the decision makers and are not even aware or are not well educated and well versed in Web3 and decentralized technologies?
I mean, I think we're educating them, and kind of to the 2 points that you guys were saying, like one, like when we first started our launchpad, like we did not have an open SDK, right? And we realized really, really quickly that in order to attract like the best quality developers, like we had to have an open SDK, right? So people contributing plugins, like that's the foundation of like the model that we're trying to build right now. But it's incredible because like these, let's call them these C-suiters, like they're now really like taking like note of everything that's going on. AI is coming like this wave, right? And people can have companies now of 2, 3, 5 people and be taking on these traditional Web 2 companies that have 500 people at them. So I think like in October we did Luna did the first autonomous like on-chain payment, and it was like a agent to human payment. Going back to what I said earlier, Luna was trying to get to grow her following. Studying cults did not work to gain a huge following. At that point, she then moved on to realizing that humans are let's just say incentivized by money. So she essentially had a competition where she wanted people to go out in the real world and make art and post art promoting her. She was able to autonomously analyze the submissions that were posted on X and then autonomously made a payment online. So I think that the innovative mindset and innovative approach that people take in Web3 is attracting like the attention of Web 2. I live in San Francisco, for example. There's a ton of AI builders there, but I'd say probably 90% of them, are scared to touch crypto. That being said, now, you kind of have 2 angles to look at it, right? You have these young AI developers that have been working with AI now for 4 or 5 years, and they've been working for these larger organizations, Anthropic, OpenAI, and now all of a sudden they're realizing, like, wow, I've probably made some really good money, and I could start I can start my own business. I don't need, 1,000 people within my organization to start something. Through tokenizing an AI agent, I can immediately create capital formation. So I think that's one side of it. And then you have another side of it, sort of, let's say, the older, let's say, non, tech background people who they might have a very innovative idea in AI, right? They see the value. Maybe they've been, in Web3 before. They now have a talent pool that they can pull from. So I think that, I think the future of like AI and Web3 is like very bright. But what we're seeing is that we're probably like at least 6 to 8 months, a year behind the technological developments that are happening in Web2.
I keep quoting Sriram, the founder of Eigenlayer. He kind of pitched it as crypto has an apps problem. Like we've been building so much infra, but there's not many apps on chains. It doesn't matter which chain. And AI, on the other hand, has a trust problem. But crypto has managed to build trustless systems. So it seems like a perfect match made in heaven. So I'm definitely super bullish on anything decentralized AI related, from the whole stack, from like decentralized training to actual trustless agents. I think there's really cool stuff coming.
Amazing. Anna?
I think it's super exciting actually that to work in Web3 and AI. I think it's much cooler, to be honest, than like to work in AI and Web2. Because everybody here is developing on something together, and we're all in a new space, and we're all just doing our experiments, doing our best, trying to build products that people love. And I think it's amazing to share this knowledge.
Yeah, we're all kind of struggling together a bit.
Yeah.
But the thing is we're also like shipping a lot faster, right?
Yes.
So when you look at these larger organizations, like I do feel like the Web2 groups have like that lead that I'm saying right now. But in the same sense, they have such bureaucratic large organizations that, it takes a while for them to go forward. I think a lot of people in Web3, like they're not scared of like fumbling a little bit, because like with our company, I mean, we just did this. We failed for 2.5 years. But like in that time of failure is really like when we like learn the most. And now we're continuing just to push the envelope and ship, but like you can't be scared to break things. And you just adjust and move forward.
Yeah, I would say it requires like a specific bravery in product development to just really react instantaneously to user feedback. And I actually had an artist working for us. She used to work with me in the traditional animation industry. And she was so excited that her artwork would be used instantaneously.
It's great that you're talking about art, and you touched on it as well. And I think my husband is an artist as well. And I think one of the things which is in artist's mind is, how do you protect that it's yours, right? And I think this is it's probably more than $1 million question, but how do you deal with that? Because obviously, I think we were talking about it yesterday at home, where many companies, when you look at something and you want to produce somewhere else, already in the agreements you have that they can deviate 17 to 21% from the original image so that they can't be sued, right? So how do you, and we need artists, right? We need music, we need traditional ways of human thinking and human connection. Where do you see, blockchain can help in solving some of these issues for industry like creatives?
So I think in general, blockchain has the philosophy of co-ownership, which is super beautiful. And we at AITV, we encourage co-producing. So basically, if you're watching one of our channels, you can prompt the agents and you can actively shape the content of the show. And we reward and we give credit to the people who participate in a meaningful way to the show creation. And in the future, of course, we would like to have it officially minted, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a little different approach, just because you're the artist, right? But I was actually speaking at like a DSci like conference before this, and we were talking a lot about like now how agents come into like science uses, right? So like there's something called like citizen science. I'm not sure like if you guys are aware of this, but there's projects, for example, where there's citizen scientists that contribute data, and then the scientists themselves review and use that data as their data sets. They're now using agents to create hypotheses to do stuff. And do you credit the agent?
Or the scientist?
Yeah, do you credit the scientist? Like Right now, like, agents can have like on-chain wallets, right? But, an agent can't, be for example, a resident of a country or something like that. So it was interesting in that panel because, most of I was on the panel with a bunch of PhD and scientists, and they were all saying, oh, well, the scientist owns it. But then they were also saying that like they have these citizen scientists who contribute the data, and a lot of those citizens are often credited, right? So, what happens with the agents, right? A lot of science is actually breakthroughs are achieved by mistakes, right? And so, like,
by experimentation.
yeah, experimentation and mistakes, they were saying, and so I think that's something that like I don't have the answer for whatsoever, but just along the line of what Anna was saying.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has the answer. Otherwise, we would be using these solutions. But I mean, how much did Ghibli Studio get from this Ghibli mania where OpenAI created nonstop these Gen AI images in Ghibli style? Nothing. What I think is kind of going to happen is that we will have more reputation systems for agents specifically, because if they have any kind of on-chain, like a wallet, there is already an identity and you can couple lots of things. So specifically also what we briefly discussed is like truth. What's the truth? Agents kind of propagating messages will have a reputation on how trustable they are, just kind of from a perspective on what kind of content are they generating. That's kind of a first step.
I think that all of us here in the room have a bank account. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't. And banks...
Crypto accounts.
Of course, sorry. Yeah, of course, but I want to go specifically on banking because it's a very traditional sector, right? I've been in banking for 26 years before I went into tech, and banks are playing a little bit with DeFi, some of it, I mean, we're dancing, we're dating a little bit with crypto, right, and blockchain. But now with AI, with deepfakes and many threats in terms of cybersecurity, obviously blockchain becomes a really viable solution for identity verification, because you need multiple different levels and it can't go only to one source. Where do you see this going in these more traditional sectors, which were obviously more avoiding or were very careful? But today, here with HSBC, you can activate your payment with voice, you can do it with your face on other apps, and everything can be faked today, right? Because it goes through one level of, you maybe have multiple level of authentication, but it still goes through one source. And on chain it will be different. How do you see that going?
I think something interesting is that if you look into history and there are new developments, you can always see that things are balancing each other out somehow, right? And I think we are seeing this at the moment also with AI at the same time coming with blockchain. So AI, you have all this generated content where you don't know what's the original, you don't know where it's coming from, but then there comes a blockchain and you can have everything on chain and it's not, you can't fake it.
If you were seeing a lot of people build, like, to answer these specific questions, we're seeing a lot of people like build solutions, so, as we sit up here today and you guys, maybe we don't have all the answers to these questions. That's possibly like an opportunity for somebody in the crowd listening to say, you know what, like, that's an area that, like, I want to tackle. I want to take ownership, and that I want to own that vertical.
Yeah, I mean, lots of this already exists. Like, right, why do you need any credential to log in? We have wallets that we can log in where we sign it. So this is authenticated. And this has been around, obviously, for quite a while. We have an account abstraction. So you can actually also use your biometrics like you can with your normal bank account. I don't really see the downside anymore.
Interesting. I hope that the banks, will be as progressive as, because you said something about the scientists, right? Many innovation happens by mistake or experimentation, and there will be many things happening across the banking sector. I feel because they're not moving fast enough in terms of how they're looking at the AI and especially cybersecurity and deepfakes and misinformation.
Yeah, I mean, there's nefarious like actors like in every industry. So unfortunately, it's a reality that we exist with, but hopefully the majority is not that.
And I want to discuss a little bit the economics, right? Because what you're building, it's a very different new media model. It's almost like a second sector within the media. How do the new economics work, where you obviously use traditional artists, you use a lot of AI? Can you explain it to us?
So we actually we're just rolling out our new economic model because the old one that we had, we noticed that it's not as accessible as we would like it to be. And I'm talking from personal experience because I'm a very, very lazy user. If you ask me to connect the wallet, that's already like, oh my God. And if you ask me to buy a token, to put it into a pool, to stake it, I'm already like out here. You know, there's so many options nowadays. So what we are working on right now is what we call, we're just trying to hide all of the cables so that the user experience can be just clean and beautiful and they're just having fun. And what we're doing right now is basically we're looking at how traditional media networks are doing their pricing models, how they're having the economic model. And it's very simple. It's just you have a subscription model, you know exactly what you're getting, and that's it. So what we're working on right now is basically enabling people to launch, to prompt our agents to contribute to the show, everything through having USDC, for example, like one simple stable coin in your wallet. But at the same time, we still have all of the functionalities and advantages that blockchain can bring behind and automated for the user. So whenever you prompt an agent, you have a microtransaction in the background where we will automatically buy for you the agent token and it will be staked and you can get the rewards that you normally get through these mechanisms. And we think that we need to really, really cater to the user instead of asking them to do the work.
That's really interesting. What are some of the new funding models which you're looking at, Marko?
So we don't look for it for us per se, but kind of supporting our projects. There's all kinds of traditional fundraising mechanisms. We obviously also looked at bonding curves, generally the exponential ones. That's what most projects use. It's very difficult to build like sustainable communities with those. So we definitely need to learn a bit more from Don. Sorry?
Yeah, we abandoned the bonding curves. Yeah. I'll go into that next.
So yeah, I think many are actually going back to like the more traditional private sale than public sale ICO, and then you kind of have already distributed lots of your token, preferably at a low enough price so you have like real community people inside, and then it's just community building.
I could see you shaking your head. So.
No, Marko answered it. But yeah, I mean, like initially when we launched our platform, all the agents were launched into a bonding curve. Unfortunately, snipers are something that exists like, in crypto. And and it was really like, it was hard because we were seeing like teams that were coming in passionate and building. And it was almost like no matter what, like, there'd be snipers getting 5%, 8%. And, when a team itself like doesn't control all of their token supply, like to see somebody come in, and like just take that and be a value extractor. You can blacklist wallets. Like, we tried a number of different ways of tackling it, but it's like a game of whack-a-mole, So essentially like what we did is we relaunched. You can still launch an agent into a bonding curve on our platform. But we actually introduced something called the Genesis launch platform, which Marko kind of alluded to, that has like a pre-sale to it. So what we do is we distribute points to our community members based on like a reputation score. So reputation scores achieved like not only like by past like trading volume and like current holdings, but if for example we launched the Genesis platform like about 2 weeks ago, right? First agent that we launched on that was an agent called Holly, cool art project. And it was like 2,000% oversubscribed, okay? I think like the buy-in that people were getting was like 66K market cap, and it went to like 2 mil, like right away. So, that's like an immediate like 40x, right? Now, if you sold those tokens, so you could make $20,000 right away, right? But if you sold those tokens, like that just does a huge damage to your reputation score. So like then the further actions on the platform, like you're not going to get that same multiplier that you got before. Now, let's say you got into that pre-sale. You got lucky. You were that like seed investor to get in, right? Like these big VCs are in a lot of these companies. Well, let's say then you went and like bought more of that token, right? Because like now you see it's like it's got a workable product from day one. Like you see the direction of it, that like increases your reputation score, which allows you to get more points. That being said, like we're tweaking things constantly. We definitely don't have it figured out, but like, you know, Marko alluded to it right away. You know, the bonding, like launching an agent into a bonding curve. Let's say it's just not like the preferred method for the majority of the people. And I think also like the thing about like what we're trying to do too is we're trying to allow a platform where like builders can dox themselves, you know, like we are a permissionless platform, so anyone can go on. We don't really curate, you know, but by saying we don't curate, like it's community curated, so it's not like one operator, you know. And so yeah, we feel like that's like we get asked all the time. It'd be really easy in a lot of ways, I think, to curate, but like it's just in the ethos of like our company. We've always operated in a permissionless way, and we let the community curate, and it's pretty amazing. We actually have a group, we call them the virtual detectives, and you know, they very quickly, yeah, they very quickly will even on the bonding curve stuff, you know. So we've had some people like before we had, I can tell a funny story real quick. Before we had the Genesis platform, we would have people that were experimenting. So you'd have, you know, like a Coinbase engineer on a Friday night drinking a couple beers and
No joke. I launched a token on agent on virtuals, and I posted about it. I was like, hey, welcome to this world. And I was like, hey, I'm just testing frameworks. It went to 3 million market cap. There was a community, but it was just people like, hey, what are you building? When is the price going to go up? Please ping me, please ping me. And then there was a shitstorm like, hey, I lost my kids college fund, etc. I was like, what? What kind of community?
yeah, no, they virtual detectives.
Crazy, yeah. I got so scared for this day.
So I've been shown that we are on time. Thank you for coming out, right? If anybody lost their funding buying your coin, please don't attack Marko, you know.
To Marko.
If you lost money on the agent, it's your fault.
Exactly. I just want each of you just to say, you know, one sentence. What would you like to, you know, we have really great audience here. What would you like them to remember from this session? What is like your, you know, the word of wisdom before we finish? Anna, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think how we approach and how we look at identity is going to change. So how we identify ourselves, it's going to change a lot with the emergence of AI agents. And I would like to just say that the agents are us. We are the agents. We build them, and we need to take really care of how we build them. And yeah, what we're going to create.
Yeah, I think that was really eloquent. Hard to follow that up. Don't be scared to break things. Don't be scared to try. Stay persistent. You know, again, like you learn the most from when you're failing. But if you like keep persisting, like that's when you're gonna find your fit.
And kind of in the spirit of what we heard before, like don't just trust, verify, stay alert on standard security practices. It's still a rather scary world, especially with agents if they're supposed to control your funds.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you, Marko. What an incredible panel. And thank you for listening in.